So I'm just going to start this session by giving you an idea of props that you might have at home that you could be utilising within the session. First thing, you could be swapping in a pair of tights for a TheraBand. So if you haven't been using a band to support the leg during leg circles, for example, and you do have some tights at home, then you can use those. The other thing is something to sit on. So today in this session we're coming into long sit, and if that's always been a bit of a challenge for you to have quite an upright spine with your legs straight out in front of you, rather than use the blocks that you'd obviously use in class, what I want you to grab, if you've got handy, are a couple of cookery books, because they're quite thick and also they're quite large as well. So grab those and we'll use those a little bit later. On your back here, give yourself an opportunity just to notice how it feels. Pay some attention to your landmarks of back of head, bottom of rib cage, back of pelvis, and soles of the feet. How are they? Are they letting go? Do they feel pretty balanced? Bring your attention to your clock, recalling the variance in which you could be resting your pelvis down onto the floor. See if you can emulate a feeling of having finished clock and really having an obvious awareness of where the centre of your dial is. From here you're coming into breathing, inhaling through your nose and exhaling through the mouth. As you breathe in, feel that you expand wide into the side ribs and into the mat behind you. And as you breathe out, give yourselves the opportunity to relax and let go of all of the air. Inhaling through the nose wide and into the floor behind you, and exhaling, letting go. So there's a feeling where the front of the feet relax, the fronts of the hips relax, as does the rib cage. Notice that front of the body letting go, dropping down to the floor. Take as much time as you need. If you feel like you're ready to move, we're starting with legs and we're going to come into bent knee fall out. When you breathe out next, you're going to allow one knee to fall out to the side, paying attention to your clock. And as you breathe in, bring that leg back to its starting position. Exhale to part the other knee. And inhale to return. See if you can draw upon the letting go of the front of the foot, front of the hips and rib cage, whilst one knee parts, and then inhaling to reconnect that foot to the floor. Exhale, letting go, and inhaling to return. I'm going to do 2 more of these. You could do a few more if you felt you needed to continue to move. Remember what the exercise is about, that stillness through the pelvis. As you part the knee next, we're going to build upon this exercise. You're going to slide the outer edge of the foot down the centre of your mat. You're still rotated outwards slightly through the top of the thigh. Bring the leg back to parallel and slide the foot back underneath you to start again on the other leg. As you exhale, heavy through the front of the foot, front of the hips and ribs, allow the knee to fall out, quiet through the dial of your pelvis. Outer edge of the foot extends down the centre of the mat, still outwardly rotated. Bring the leg back to parallel and slide the leg back underneath you. You're going to take an exhale for parting and extending. And then inhale for rolling the thigh bone within the pelvis and drawing the leg back in and underneath you. Once you feel you've mastered that coordination of breath and movement, refer back to your aim. Stillness in the dial of the pelvis, whilst the thigh bone moves away, along, back to parallel, and draws back in again. Exhaling, lengthening, and inhaling and returning. You do 2 more. Exhale and extend. Inhale, parallel, and return. Last one. Exhale, extend, parallel, and return yourself back in again. Just as a double check, draw your feet together so that they're touching. Feel the big toe knuckles and the inner ankle bones. Feel the inner knees next to each other. From here, you'll turn your toes away from each other, swivel on the balls of the feet and bring your heels into line. From here, we're coming into bent knee fall out. And again, dependent on where you are with your breath, you'll use the exhale, the letting go through the front of the foot, the hip and the ribs, and the light appearance of one leg to lift. Inhale with your leg lifted, and then exhale to bring the leg all the way back down again. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, down to float. Inhale with the leg raised, and exhale to return. Breath in, breath out. Letting go, sinking back, easy float. Inhale with your leg raised, and exhale to return. We're going to do 1 more. You may be moving a little quicker. That would be fine. Always move in accordance with your breath. Breathing in when your leg is raised and breathing out to return. The next time you take one leg up towards the ceiling and you'll still prep in the same way via heaviness, inhale with that leg raised, and as you exhale next, really think about this thigh bone sinking down, almost like it appears through the back of you as you take the other leg up to join. Notice whether you need to make an adjustment here. So rather than feeling frozen or braced, particularly through the pelvis and the lower back, can you make this position feel comfortable for you? Relaxed shins and feet, thigh bones dropping into pelvis. At quite a high technical level required, you're still in the center of your dial. But at this stage, you might prefer to tilt the pelvis very slightly to 6. If that alleviates a feeling of tension through the front or in the lower back, then that would be an absolute choice for you. Otherwise, could you keep the center of the dial of the pelvis? And as you breathe out and your ribs soften and the front of the hip relaxes, you're going to take 1 foot down towards the floor. And as you breathe in, that leg will come back up again. And see if you can get an understanding of moving femur head within hip socket so that you're really aware of the leg shape staying the same. The movement is here and only here. Exhale, leg moves away from you, and inhale, leg returns. You're looking at developing an awareness of where the floor is. See if you can stop just before you touch the floor, and you might find that one leg always touches down despite you thinking you might just catch it doing so. Inhale to come back up, and the other one finishes quite far away from the floor. But the aim isn't to touch the floor, it's to stay active and keep the legs away from the floor. This will be your last one, and then one shot up there, you're going to bring your feet separately down onto the floor. Again, really developing awareness of clock. Notice how that feels to finish. If it feels a little strained in the lower back, a little fatigued, then you may have been overworking the dial of the clock. And advice to you would be to slightly tilt to 6 next time and see how you got on. Sometimes it's difficult to know where you are in the clock, and your choice may have been more of a slight 12 to what you thought to being centre. So keep checking in, noticing how it feels, really important. If you've been on a head cushion, take it away there, because we're going to come into bridging now. But before we do bridging, I just want you to play around with a real subtlety that we're going to add today, and that's use of feet. So we've always thought about feet being down into the floor to allow the pelvis to hover, and that's still going to happen. But as well as a down, I actually want you to think about the front of the foot moving forwards. And what you might notice as you do that is that the pelvis begins to respond. So if you send the feet down and forwards and then drag the heels back towards you, even though there's no large movement, might feel like you're stretching your mat a little in one direction and then letting go of the slack. You might notice with that subtlety of pushing into the ground but forwards as an addition, that the pelvis begins to move, the back of the head certainly begins to move. As you then imagine that the heels are drawing towards you, you might get that effect up the chain again of the spine and the chin nodding. You're going to try that as you come into bridging. So as you breathe out, pushing down still but also sending the big toes away, it will bring you into a hover and a real tilt, tiny tilt towards 6, which you continue to build upon, bringing your pelvis up high. You'll take a breath in up the top. Now, as you breathe out and you start to relax through the back of the throat, could you begin to draw your heels back towards you? And you'll find that the pelvis flattens out. You do get some extra recruitment up the back of the leg. So play that subtle card there for sure, and start again. As you breathe out, feet go down, but they also go forwards. And they'll start to peel the spine up into your bridge, inhaling when you're up there, and as you exhale, could you feel like you're putting your heels back underneath you, spine returns from top to bottom, and you settle the pelvis down. Exhaling, feet go down and forwards, tilting, inhaling up at the top, and as you exhale, heels feel like they draw back towards you, and the spine returns, perhaps feeling longer, a little bit more decompressed, and even closer to the heels upon return. We're just going to do a few more of these. What I'd like you to add up at the top of each bridge is a feeling of arms to ceiling. And then as you breathe out, you'll reach the arms back as you drag the heels back towards you, and you'll bring yourself all the way down. And then you'll inhale to come back down again. Last one, just to add this arm arc. Feet go down into the mat, and a feeling of going forwards. You'll notice that the chin moves, as does the pelvis. Peeling away, you'll also sense that the big toes are certainly on the floor. Inhale to float your arms. This is your last one. You'll exhale, feel like you drag your heels back towards you, large recruitment through the back of the leg, and then inhale to come all the way back down again. The next time you breathe in, we'll come into full arm arcs here. So inhaling, taking your arms up and back, and exhaling to return. You can think about being in the center of your clock. And quite often finishing the bridge each time does bring you into the center naturally. Inhaling, lots of shoulder movement there. Exhaling to return. And breath in. And breath out. Still filling up side and back ribs. And deflating as you come back down again. Take your fingers to the ceiling next and come into open and close. So you'll breathe in and open the arms wide to the sides and breathe out to bring them back up towards the ceiling. Inhaling for width. Exhaling, could you maintain width? Inhaling. And exhaling. Breath in. And breath out. I'm going to do 2 more of these. Upper arms well connected to the chest and pecs and sternum. Just allow that thought of expansion to stem from the center of the chest. And then once you're closed, we'll move into shoulder drops. As you breathe out, the backs of the shoulders reach up, fingertips will follow, and as you breathe in, you've got that expansion across the chest again as the backs of the shoulders come back down again. Exhaling to take the fingertips up, led via backs of shoulders, and inhaling to come back again. Breathing out and breathing in. Last one. Sticking with that middle spine, as we've done in class plans before, you're going to bring yourself onto your side now. Grab some sort of cushioning or rolled up towel. It comes underneath the side of your head, legs are bent and arms are outstretched in front of you. You'll take a breath in, and as you breathe out, follow that top arm to the ceiling and continue to rotate yourself round. Inhale when you're open, and then exhale to bring yourself back to closed. I quite like to start book openings initially with a ceiling glance and then a sense that the pelvis doesn't move initially. So you can really judge how you're doing through the middle spine. And then as you breathe out, arm comes back via that ceiling point. And then when you've got a good indication of where you're at, where do you meet yourself? After you've rotated and you've got that understanding of still being 3/9 here, you can start to drop back through that hip. So you allow yourself to drop back. So you're now no longer stacked 3 and 9 above each other. And then the hip will return first. Quite a big deal for hip flexors, so far as opening, and you bring yourself back. We always breathe out as we move on this one. And it's one continuous breath where possible. If you feel like you run out of breath at any time, inhale wherever you get to and just pause the movement. And you can do an extended breath pattern, however many exhales, inhales it takes for you to bring yourself round. And I'll show you a version of that for this last one. So you'll breathe out to open. Say I've run out of exhale here. Rather than continue with no breath, I'll take another breath in. And as I breathe out, I feel like I'm winding myself around a little more. Then I'll drop the back hip round. It gives the tissue time to react. And then as I exhale, hip coming forward to bring myself all the way back onto my side. Other side from there, so knees bent still, soles of the feet in line. Always move your head cushion back rather than move your chin forward and start without that stacked alignment. Take a breath in, and as you breathe out, you're clocking the ceiling first. That's your priority. You'll come round a little further and notice what you have. Breath in when you're open, and as you breathe out, back to the ceiling and back to close. So notice as I'm exhaling to return, initially, I don't need to send my pelvis forward because ideally it hasn't moved yet. Inhale when you're open. The exhale does help you get back. And then from there, breathing out, arm to ceiling. Today's version will be get to where you get to. Then allow the hip to drop back. Inhale when you're open. And the exhale and the hip combined will get you back from a slightly larger rotation. Exhale to open the arm, looking at it as it travels to the ceiling. Can you keep spiraling round rib cage? Almost like the ribs are a cylinder around the spine. Inhale when you're open. And then exhale to come forward to bring you back. And then just a version with a double breath pattern. So you'll breathe out to open. And this is really if ever you feel like I've run out of breath already. You'll take another breath in. But rather than close, I'm going to continue to open. And then I'm going to drop the hip back. Inhale when you're open. Exhale, nudge the hip forward and bring yourself back round into your closed position. From here, you're going to come onto your back and we're going to come into chest lift. We're going to chest lift full version. So bring yourself back onto your back. Toes apart, heels into line. Just notice how that feels once more with the back of the body, your landmarks, and then you'll interlace your fingers and take them behind your head. Now take a breath in as you breathe out, lengthen, sigh through the upper body and bring yourself up into your chest lift. Inhale, you reach the arms long and hold on to the thighs. Exhale, you're going to think about widening the back ribs, so front ribs have to come in more, elbows go wide. You breathe in, you try and maintain that height, and then you breathe out to bring yourself all the way back down again. Exhale to lengthen, to soften, to feel the back ribs react. Inhale. Now you might not feel the rib cage widen so much back here. Notice whether that's because you've really sent the lower back into the floor and begun to use the hip flexors a little bit more. So exhaling, lengthening. You're really trying to mobilize. Inhale what you just did when you rotated. Exhale. Inhale, hands come back behind head. Holding on to back of head carefully and laying yourself back down again. Last one, exhale, lengthening, nodding chin to chest. Inhale, reach arms to thighs. Exhale, deepen through the curve, elbows wide. Hands come back behind the head and you lay down. From here, bring your knees into your chest. We're coming into femur arcs. So really great one for some mobility through the lower back and some mobility through the hips. Shins and feet are relaxed, hands are resting on the knees. And you're going to circle the thigh bones within the hip sockets. But you're doing your best to think about the movement being much more about arms leading legs, so that you can really try to deepen the connection of femur head into pelvis and really relax your shins and feet. Once you've come round to this last one and brought the knees back towards the chest, you're going to reverse the movement. So take care as you reverse the movement. You always want to feel that your lower back is touching the mat. Now, of course, are quite lordotic, you have an exaggerated lower back curve, that might not be possible, but you do want to ensure that the lower back curve doesn't increase if that's more of your spinal position. Otherwise, if your lower back can happily sink down into the floor with your thighs into your chest, then no air at any time between it and the mat as you're circling round. After you've done this last one, knees and thighs back together again. You're going to hold on to the backs of your legs. And if you just begin to send the thighs forwards, as you breathe out, nod your chin to your chest, and that's going to bring you into rolling up and rolling down. Now I've got my knees and feet together now, but I'm actually going to find some space because I prefer hip width. You could keep your legs together if you wanted to. This movement we're doing to get going is the same movement we did in bridging. The feet push down into the floor and forwards to begin that tilt of the pelvis backwards. You then draw the balls of the feet towards you only when you need them, and that will bring you onto your back. Exhale, legs go forward, chin nods to chest, and that brings you all the way back up again. You'll sit tall, feet go down and forwards, and that starts this tilting on the side of the hips. Balls of the feet will draw towards you. You bring yourself onto your back. Inhale. As you exhale, legs go forwards first, chest lift. Keep the feet diving down towards the floor to bring you all the way back up again. We're going to do one more. Exhale, feet go down and forwards. Mini tilts which you'll then encourage to grow more for you as you come back down towards the floor. Drag your feet and you've arrived. Last one, exhaling, feet, thighs, breath out to bring yourself all the way back up again. Time to use those cookery books. So if you grab your books now, you're actually going to sit on them. And like I said, you could put something over the top there if you wanted to, like a tea towel or another towel. You know, have your legs straight out in front of you. Now, notice particularly if this position, a long sit, is challenging for you, and whether you've been doing the movement with the legs slightly bent. Notice how it might feel slightly easier now that your hips are raised. And 2 might not be enough. You might prefer to have 3 or 4. Like I said before, you can even bring yourself up to sit to do this. So the arms are out in front of you, and as you breathe out, you'll nod your chin to your chest and start to sigh. Your front ribs are drawing in, back ribs are spreading back, very much like the chest lift. When you inhale, you restack as if the walls behind you, just gently drawing the upper arms back into the socket. So exhaling, chin to chest, shoulders protract, that's your shoulder drop exercise. It's going to go through the arms, stay lifted. There's this notion here that as you're moving the spine forward especially, that the pelvis feels free, like it's pouring you, exhaling, up and out of the waist and ribs to take you over into this spine stretch position. Once you've inhaled next, and you're sitting tall, we're staying here, but we're opening the arms out to the side. Now feel the base of the pelvis firmly planted into the floor. As you breathe out, you're going to begin to rotate the ribs around the spine, look round and over the shoulder, and as you inhale, bring yourself back to center. Exhaling, ribs. Think about the ribs moving around the spine. Look over your shoulder, keep looking round, and then inhale, bring yourself back to where you started. We're going to do 2 more. Exhale to rotate, rib cage. See if you can gauge where it is, how it's doing, and inhale to return. Last one, breath out. Gaze. And inhale to return. From there you can come off your books. And we're going to come into side lift. Side lift today, I'm going to give you an option to advance the movement. So just as a reminder to start off with, your legs are bent, you're on your forearm, your other arm is on the side of the hip. The shins and the feet appear to be behind your body line. As you breathe out, push down into the floor, lift the armpit, lift the ribs and the hip, take the arm up towards the ceiling. Inhale when you're up here and exhale to come back down again. If it feels doable, manageable, not too much load back here and your head is in a good position, straighten the top leg. As you breathe out, down to come up. You'll then weight bear more through one leg than the other. You still want to feel that you're sending your pelvis forward. Inhale when you're up and exhale to come back down again. If you feel good, shoulder, neck, head, arm, 2 straight legs, the ankles are flexed. If you suddenly feel like you need your arm to help you down here, go back to just the top leg being straight. Otherwise, this hand stays here, legs are absolutely straight. You push down into the floor, you lift, and arm goes to the ceiling. So you still lifted the armpit, you still lifted the ribs and the waist and the hip, and then as you breathe out, carefully lower yourself all the way back down again. Same thing on the other side. Starting with just a reminder of the patterning that we've already worked on. Knees are bent, shin and foot behind the body. There's some slight outward rotation happening in this forearm here, and the hand is going to come onto the hip. As you breathe out, you push down to lift up, waist and hip, and arm goes to ceiling. Inhale when you're up here, and then exhale to lower yourself back down again. Top leg could straighten. As you breathe out, there's not too much difference in load on the shoulder girdle if you're in a good position. So just notice whether that's an increased challenge for you. If it is, then that might be what you do for the third. If you'd like to give the other variation a go, here you are, 2 straight legs, absolutely straight. If you lift your hips up with this other hand on the floor, you're not ready. Otherwise, exhale, elbow down, forearm down, armpit, ribs, waist and hip. Inhale whilst you're up here, and as you exhale, carefully lower yourself all the way back down again. From there, you're going to come to lay on your back. You're going to lay with your legs outstretched and your arms reaching up and above your head, and we're going to do a full roll up to bring us back up to a seated position. So you'll take an inhale here. As you exhale, arms go to the ceiling, chin nods to the chest, you send the back ribs back and you roll yourself all the way up to sit. Now you can either continue like that, or if you want a little bit of support, you can use some tights. They're going to come around your feet. You're going to have them pretty taut. Exhaling, backs of legs go down and forwards, which starts that tilting action, really similar to the bent leg version. I'm rolling down, but I've got some support here. I could slide my hands up the band if I wanted to and bring myself onto my back. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, nod your chin to your chest, send your back ribs into the floor. Back of the shoulders are going to wrap round, and that's going to bring yourself all the way back up again. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, backs of the legs go down and forwards, front of the hips opening wide. Notice how the spine appears to drop between the shoulder blades. Spine dropping back, shoulder blades wrapping forwards. Take a breath in. Breathing out, chin to chest, spine dropping back, shoulder blades wrapping forward. From here, you're going to take one foot out. We're going to come into leg circles. I've got my right leg currently in the stirrup. I'm going to roll down in the same way, and then I'm going to keep the band quite taut, so I've kept the same grip on it for these types, but you could switch around, play around with it. And then I'm going to bring my elbows down onto the floor. Mini circles with a little bit of support from the band. The leg comes across the body to the left first. Again, I'm using my right leg. And I'm going to complete 6 circles and then change direction. So the direction change, again, it's small. I'm going to go out to the right now. I'm coming round. And 6. From here, I'm going to stand into my makeshift band and reach my leg long and away from me. Circling left leg, travelling to the right first. Completing 6 in total. Circling the other direction. And there we have it. So I'm going to take these tights away now. I don't need them. And I'm going to bring myself into a hands and knees position. So what I'm just going to prep here is to come to stand a little later on in the session. So I'm going to find my sense of spine being the tabletop and legs and arms being the table legs. Notice that the back of the head is lifted up and in line. If I push down into the floor with one hand and the opposite knee, I'm going to notice some lightness in the knee that didn't push down, and that's going to be the one I choose to send away from me. Curl the toe under behind you there, ideally just about on your mat. And if you push down into the floor simultaneously, you'll be able to take the other leg away. So I'm just prepping here, I'm just feeling and finding. And then what I'm going to do is carefully draw one knee back underneath me, still pushing down with the hands, and draw the other knee back underneath me, bringing myself back into my tabletop. From here, I'm going to prep my extension patterns by coming into a high kneeling position, and I'm going to grab those tights again. I'm going to come behind the body. So in this high kneeling position, with a feeling of not being in any sort of seat, I'm up tall, open through the fronts of the hips. I'm going to breathe in and widen through the collarbones. So thinking about from the sternum outwards gets wider. The chest is broad, the triceps move back, and as the front of my body opens, there's a sense of shoulder blades being active and perhaps moving towards each other a little. I'm going to inhale here as I grow and expand across the chest, and I'm going to exhale as I relax. And that's going to be the same breath pattern I use when I come to lay down in a moment. Inhaling, you don't actually need any elasticity in the band, so you can be holding it quite taut, whether it's a pair of tights or not. Last one, inhaling, widening collarbones, upper arms, and exhaling to relax. That exact same movement you're going to come to do laying on your front. I'm just going to hook it around my waist there whilst I come to lay down. And then whilst I'm laying down, I'm going to reach both legs away long, Take hold of the band again in the same place. My arms will be straight. And I'm going to start with a hovered forehead, because I know for me, if I rest my chin and nose downwards, my head is actually in front of my upper body. So I'm starting here. You could have a cushion underneath your forehead if you wanted a feeling more of support. Inhale and get longer. Longer through the upper spine, longer through the crown. Widen through the collarbones. Take the upper arms up and away from you. Imagine you get wider in the front and narrower through the blades. Exhale to return to your starting position, wherever that may be. Inhale, get longer. Out of the crown of the head, wider through the collarbones. Thinking about lifting the triceps upwards. And then exhale. Breath in. Widen. Last one, breath in, lengthen, widen, and triceps. When you're down on that next breath out, take your band or your tights to the side and bring your hands onto the floor for swan. Similar movement, lengthening, widening, elbows moving backwards. Exhale to return. So with some support, can you still manage to maintain the same idea of length and width, and that the shoulder blades draw towards each other as the chest expands? We're just going to do 2 more of these. So you make a correlation between dart and swan. Inhale, lengthen, widen. Breath in. Just going to finish off here on our front with some legs. So if you rest your head on your hands with your elbows out to the side, you'll reach one leg long to a hover and rest the leg down. Lengthening, alternate legs and exhaling. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in. Both legs lengthening simultaneously. Now it can be trickier here for the lower back not to become involved. So if you can refer back to your clock here, that would be great. There's a feeling of you tilting your pelvis to 6 as you lengthen and hover. You certainly want to think that you're sending the tops of the thigh bones down into the floor as you tilt to lift, and then you'll be able to see that this lower back curve is really quiet. It's not getting involved in the action at all. Back to single legs and a bend of the knee, and the same thing would apply. You're trying to send the top of the thigh bone down and in as you did before. And then can you fold the knee without using the lower back to help you out there? So the knee may or may not be away from the floor. Wherever it is fine, providing that you're aware of your parallel, aware of your midline, and aware of not utilising anything through the lower back to get you here. You're going to do 1 more of these. Again, even number, depending on which leg you started on. And then from here, we're going to come into a child's pose. Child's pose isn't suitable for you. You could come onto your back. But you just want something that's going to round you. Relaxed in the upper body. Relaxed in the lower half of the spine. Something that creates an appearance of even curve. Notice what you have. Now from here, for some of you, you're going to come onto hands and knees, bring yourself into a plank as we've already done, and then walk back to your feet with your hands to reverse roll up. For others, you're just going to come up to stand from here. So you've already demonstrated the hands and knees and the plank anyway. If you're confident and you're happy to be upside down, then you're going to come back to that diagonal connection into the floor, slide one leg away from you, curl the toe under. Now the other thing about this version is take your time. Push down into the floor and slide one leg away from you. From here you'll take the hips upwards, so you'll pike the hips as you take as many walks as you need to come back to the feet. Now I know you've done the movement before, but you've done it from an upright position rather than a forward facing position. As you breathe out, lift up through the navel, draw the front body into the back body, relaxing your arms, feeling of let go. Could the arms and hands stay down low the whole time to bring you all the way up to stand. From there, our regular finish. Breathing out and nodding your chin to your chest. Drawing your front ribs in. Feeling again of up and over to take you down towards the floor. You could roll up from here. You don't necessarily need to weight bear through the upper body. Know that if you do weight bear through the upper body, you have to stay in your legs as well. You're still really using the toes and the backs of the legs, upper legs. Find your plank position. As you all know, heels backwards and the hips start to pike up towards the ceiling. You'll relax and soften. Definitely looking at your own legs here. Any lightheadedness, any dizziness once you get up to the top here, and please don't come down and up anymore. Exhaling, nod your chin to your chest. Draw the front ribs in, feeling of up and over. And you could finish here taking a breath in at the bottom, unraveling to bring yourself back. Or you could walk out into the plank one last time. Use your toes, use your legs, stay strong there. And as you exhale, heels go back and down. Walk back to your feet. Softened knees. And as you breathe out, lift the front body in towards the back body, unraveling to bring yourself all the way up to stand.